Hi, welcome back, folks. As someone who's spent close to 25 years in executive search, I've had the privilege of seeing leadership evolve across generations, industries, and business cycles. But lately, I found myself increasingly grappling with something rather unusual and unsettling. Over the past few years, the volume of conversations, resumes, and outreach from a particular section of professionals has gone up dramatically. And that section is experienced professionals in their late 40s or early 50s. People who have spent decades building businesses, scaling functions, leading teams, navigating crises, and helping the organization grow, yet suddenly many of them find themselves displaced and uncertain, and in some cases quietly irrelevant in the corporate world they helped build. And that's got me thinking, why is this happening? Why are organizations slowly moving away from experience? Why are we becoming so obsessed with youth that we may unknowingly be losing the wisdom in the room? So I thought, let me dig a little deeper into this subject, because this is no longer just about jobs. It is about how organizations view relevance, leadership, wisdom, and value itself in a rapidly changing world. And perhaps more importantly, what happens to institutions when experience slowly stops having a seat on the table. We are slowly becoming obsessed with youth, not youthful thinking, not youthful energy, but youth itself. And somewhere in this obsession, corporate India is quietly pushing out an entire generation of experienced professionals. People in their late 40s, 50s, often at the exact point where they have the most wisdom to offer. Today, a 50-year-old executive can suddenly find himself feeling outdated, not because he cannot contribute, but because the system has slowly started believing younger means faster, cheaper, more adaptable, more digital, and more relevant. And this is becoming a dangerous assumption because experience is not liability, wisdom is not redundancy, and maturity is not inefficiency. In fact, some of the finest leadership qualities only emerge with age. The ability to handle ambiguity calmly, the ability to manage crisis without panic, the ability to read people and navigate complexities, to understand consequences before making a decision. These are not PowerPoint skills, these are lived skills, and lived skills take decades to build. There is an invisible shift inside these organizations. Yet today, many organizations are unconsciously creating cultures where people above a certain age begin to feel invisible. Suddenly, the room changes. You're no longer seen as high potential. You're expensive, you're legacy, you're a traditional guy, sometimes even not agile enough. And what makes this even more tragic is that many of these individuals spend 25, 35 years building the very institution that are now slowly moving away from them. This is no longer a debate between young and old. And now let me be very clear. This is about resisting change. Organizations absolutely need young talent, digital thinking guys, new age capability, fresh energy. But the problem begins when companies mistake youthful energy for wisdom, speed for judgment, confidence for maturity, and disruption for leadership. Because every organization eventually reaches a point where execution alone is not enough. You need judgment, you need perspective, you need pattern recognition, you need leaders who have seen many cycles before them. And that's where wisdom matters. because some lessons can only be lived. The market cycles, the downturns, the people crisis, the boardroom conflicts, ethical dramas, failures. A 28-year-old may bring huge hunger, but a 50-year-old often brings perspective. A great organization needs both, not one replacing the other, but both sitting at the same table. What worries me is that many companies today are unintentionally creating leadership ecosystems with very little intergenerational balance. And when that happens, organizations slowly lose the most important aspect: institutional memory. They lose mentorship, they lose emotional maturity, they lose context, because wisdom transfer does not happen through systems alone. It happens through people, it happens through conversations, it happens through observations, and through lived experiences. There is a huge hidden cost for this age bias, which organizations will soon realize. Some of the best business lessons are never written in manuals. They are absorbed sitting beside someone who has seen difficult times before them. And here's another uncomfortable truth. When organizations start excessively optimizing for age and cost, they often create silent fear internally. People stop feeling secure. Leaders taking long-term bets. Executives start managing perceptions instead of building institutions. And somewhere, trust starts to erode quietly. Relevance has no age because the real question is adaptability. Now, of course, not every experienced leader remains relevant forever. Some people do stop evolving. Some become rigid, some refuse change, and organizations cannot become museums of nostalgia. But the answer is not age elimination. The answer is continuous reinvention, because relevance has no age. And irrelevance also has no age. I know 45-year-olds who are far future ready than 35-year-olds. And I know younger leaders who already think like bureaucrats. Know it all. So perhaps the conversation should not be how old are you, but how adaptable are you? How curious are you? How self-aware are you? How much can you still build? The leadership balance organizations need is innovation with wisdom. The future of organizations cannot be built only on youthful ambitions. It also needs seasoned judgment, especially in certain times. The best organization in the world understands this balance beautifully. They combine youthful energy with experienced wisdom, because innovation without wisdom becomes chaos, and wisdom without innovation becomes stagnation. You need both. Lastly, are we building institutions or just momentums? And perhaps corporate India now needs to ask itself a difficult question. Are we building institutions, or are we simply building quarterly momentum? Because institutions are not built only by young disruptors. They are also built by people who stayed long enough to understand consequences, continuity, and stewardship. And maybe that is what we are in danger of losing today. Not experience alone, but overall institutional wisdom itself. As my good colleague Neha Malhotra always says, let's not lose wisdom in the room. Signing off, Rajesh. Thank you.